So I'm going to be completely honest, I'm sort of conflicted on this episode. I know that the majority of the fanbase really enjoyed this one and think it's been a really good turnaround after some not so great episodes, but personally I didn't think this episode was that much of a turnaround. I definitely think that it wasn't as bad as some of the other episodes we've had this season, but I don't think it was like a crazy, this one is so much better than everything else we've had sort of thing. I wasn't even going to make this video because I knew my opinion just does not line up with what most people think about this episode at the moment, but I'm going to do it anyway. So yeah, basically, I think this episode is definitely better than what we've had recently. There was definitely some stuff in here that was by far the coolest we've had in a while. Some of the Godspeed fight stuff was genuinely amazing, like no joke, I was loving some of the fight stuff. But I thought there was still too much of the weird storylines and weird writing that we've been getting all season. By this I'm sort of referring to things like Killer Frost and Chillblaine storyline. It feels really forced and just kind of weird, and I've yet to actually see a single person who is into that plotline or into what they're doing there. It seems like they're really trying to make Chillblaine into a hero or a member of Team Flash, but it's happening in such an unnatural and rushed way, and it just feels very strange. On a similar path, we have the whole Ultraviolet and Allegra plotline, which also carried over into this episode from last week, and I'm also not really invested in that at all. I think it is good that we're getting some kind of plot development for Allegra, but I also think this isn't really an interesting way to do it. Ultraviolet was kind of a bland villain when she first got introduced to the show, and it hasn't really changed now, so I don't really know why we need to bring that character back just to give Allegra some story. And I know that a lot of people were kind of like, well, you know, the Chillblaine and Killer Frost storyline wasn't great, the Allegra and Ultraviolet story wasn't great, the Kramer and Joe storyline wasn't great, but the Barry and Godspeed stuff was so good that it makes this episode so much better than everything else. But I mean, the Killer Frost and Chillblaine stuff was like at least half the episode, it felt like, and the Allegra and Ultraviolet stuff was also a pretty decent chunk, so it's a pretty big part of the episode that people seem to not be crazy about. To still say that this is an improvement over everything else we've had is a little strange. But on the other side, I think what they're doing with Chester is great. I was worried he was going to end up just being kind of Cisco 2.0 because they have a habit of doing that, just kind of bringing in new tech characters, and they end up being very similar to ones we've already had. But I think they're actually doing a great job with him and making him feel different to Cisco. He kind of actually does have this energy and look to everything that is very similar to how Cisco was in the early seasons of The Flash, which is a cool contrast to how Cisco is now. So it's good to have kind of Chester be a light-hearted, fun character like that, because Cisco has kind of been pretty kind of a downer on the team for the last while. He still had some fun and upbeat moments for sure, but he definitely hasn't been as upbeat and fun as he used to be. So it's cool that Chester is kind of taking on that role now. And I also think that he actually added a lot to this episode, and Chester ended up being pretty capable against Godspeed. In terms of Barry, I think he was definitely written better than usual as well. He felt genuinely smart this episode. Like, there were a couple times when I was super impressed with how he was handling the situation. And for example, he was surrounded by Godspeeds at one point and just straight up vibrated through the floor, and that was something that I really wish we saw more of, because it sort of feels like Barry is only smart when the writers feel like it, and the rest of the time they kind of nerf him just to make the storyline work or whatever. But I think that that's kind of a frustrating way to deal with the character. And on the same path, the fight scene in Star Labs is by far one of the coolest and best scenes we've had in years. It really reminded me of the early fights with Barry against Thawne or Hunter, and we had Barry utilizing his speed in a smart way. We obviously had him struggle as well, but not enough that he was going to lose that fight. And then his screaming of "come on" and knocking the Godspeeds down was fantastic as well, and this is the sort of Barry I want to see more of. I also love the aesthetic of Star Labs during this fight, with the flashing red lights and darkened colour, and it's identical to how the place looked during Crisis on Earth X, and I think that tone really suits this episode as well. Now, it was great to see Godspeed again, but besides the fight scenes, I'm genuinely not into their weird way of adapting the character, because they have this weird kind of modem noise they make, and that's how they communicate, and the way they just slowly turn and look at each other, it feels like they're aliens or robots or whatever rather than actual human beings, and it doesn't translate to live action well at all. I also think that while this is a pretty brave artistic choice, it's something that they shouldn't have went with, in my opinion, because it feels like they're not real villains. It feels like they're kind of pawns, or they're villains from Power Rangers or something with absolutely no personality to them, and I get that that's probably what they're trying to do. It's probably going to end up that they're not humans or whatever, that they are actually androids or clones or something like that. But I think that they could be doing a better way to make them feel like actual villains and not just weird kind of Power Ranger things. And they don't talk, they're literally only there to get knocked over by the hero. Now, I guess, yeah, we haven't actually seen the real Godspeed yet, and I'm sure that when we do see him, he'll actually talk like a person, he'll actually feel, you know, like a proper villain. But at the moment, it feels a little hard to get invested in what they're doing, because they've been teasing this Godspeed arc for almost 2 years now, and the first episode just did not feel like the wait was worth it to me. Another thing that felt like they're making some weird choices was the scene where the Godspeed surround Barry outside and shoot the weird white vibrations into Barry from their chest. Now this was absolutely nothing to do with the visual effects or the CGI, because I think they tried their best for sure, but it just looked very, very stupid. It doesn't look threatening or serious, it looks more like a joke than anything. And again, this has nothing to do with the CGI or VFX, because I imagine this was impossible to make look good no matter what. But this scene has been memed over and over on Twitter already since the episode aired. And again, it's not because the CGI is bad, it's because aesthetically this just looks very strange and not in a good way. A lot of people know what I'm getting at here about what it looks like. It's not great when that's what people think of when they see a scene from a comic book TV show. So, I don't know, I feel like they could have done that a better way. Now obviously the explosion didn't kill or even hurt Joe, because we found out right after the episode aired that Jesse L. Martin, who plays Joe, is coming back as a regular for season 8, along with Candace, who plays Iris, and Danielle, who plays Caitlin and Killer Frost. But I hope Kramer's storyline with Joe is going somewhere good, because honestly, I'm not going to be surprised at all if it turns out that Kramer's metahuman brother called Adam ends up actually being the real Godspeed, since Godspeed's name in the comics is August Hart, and I could completely see the reveal that the brother's actual name is Adam Hart or something. I feel like that'd be a smart way to make Kramer and Joe's plot relevant to the actual plot of this season. It was also actually pretty cool seeing Nora back again. I'm going to take a guess and assume this scene was filmed during episode 17 or 18, since Jessica Parker Kennedy, who plays Nora, is going to be in those 2 episodes as well. So this also serves like a neat way to reintroduce the character to the audience, since it's coming onto 2 years since we've last seen her. And Iris wasn't in the episode at all, which would have been fine if they'd just done the usual Iris isn't in town today or something, or she's off on a story. But instead, having Barry talk to her like 4 or 5 separate times while she's off screen felt a little forced, and it felt like they were trying to have her in the episode even though they knew they couldn't. I feel like it would have worked better if they just had said Iris is not around rather than trying to have these scenes. But yeah, I understand that my opinion for this episode is kind of controversial at the moment. It's not what most people think about the episode, so please just respect my opinion on it. Don't go attacking and disliking the video just because you disagree. But I'm very excited to see Diggle next episode, and also all these returning speedsters in the final 2 episodes. I'm expecting these next 3 episodes to be pretty insane in a good way, so hopefully they are. But how did you feel about the episode? Did you like it? Did you hate it? And if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, and all of that, and I hope you have a great day.